Hi, my name is Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the calls for the government to extend the Brexit transition period now in order to deal with our current healthcare issue. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So we have a little bit of a panic in the world, shall we say, a certain health-related issue that has already closed Italy off and has moved from containment to delay in the UK. As a result, there are a number of political leaders calling for the British government to seek an immediate extension to the transition period for two main reasons. The first is that the shock to the global economy that this is going to cause will make it quite impossible for a nation about to find itself without trade agreements with its major trading partners, well, quite impossible to stay with its head above water. And the second is that the extra workload required of the civil service to cope with the human and economic pressures of this crisis are also going to make it impossible for them to focus sufficiently on Brexit. We have basically two major crises at the moment requiring our full attention, and Brexit is the one that we can put off. So people from across the political spectrum, including from within the Conservative ranks, although not too loudly from the Parliamentary Party, are suggesting that extending now would be a prudent move. It probably wouldn't even be too difficult politically for Boris Johnson, if he had a mind to look after Britain's interests, that is. I mean, we know he doesn't, but let's be charitable. After all, the pandemic isn't his fault, and he's not going to help himself by letting a virulent virus run rampant when those most at risk are, well, his support demographic. Bearing in mind that we haven't yet seen disruption to general life in the UK, it could be coming though. Again, look at Italy. It's not inevitable that other countries will have to take such drastic action, but it also can't be taken for granted that we won't have to. And even if we don't have to take such drastic action, some very disruptive action is very, very possible. We don't yet know. Philip Hammond, who was the Conservative Chancellor before Boris Johnson became Prime Minister, said that the current crisis could have an even greater economic impact than Johnson's hard Brexit. Now, I haven't seen this particular claim coming from economists. I've only heard politicians say this. Doesn't mean it isn't true. Just because I haven't seen an economist say it, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence and all that. But if it were true, then opening ourselves up voluntarily to an economic quicksand when we're still stuck in the quagmire of a comparable or even potentially worse one that can't be helped would seem like madness. And I know Brexit does seem like madness, but surely nobody could be insane enough to willingly steer us into this sort of 2021. Number 10 is still saying that there will be no extension. But we are also being told that civil servants who had been working on the no-deal Brexit preparations are now working on our response to the pandemic. That means they're no longer working on the no-deal Brexit preparations. Now, I know that these were civil servants who were working in the Department for Exit in the UK, and that department doesn't exist. But we still need to prepare for no deal because, well, we haven't actually prepared yet. So presumably those civil servants could have still been employed in other departments with no deal preparations, which is now not taking place because they are focusing on a much more urgent situation. Boris Johnson's spokesperson said of the EU talks, which at the moment you would think are going nowhere, but they said, and I quote, "The talks are progressing exactly as planned." Well, as there's currently no progress apparent at all in the talks, as highlighted by the exchanges which have taken place via public statements from Ursula von der Leyen and Michael Gove, I can only assume that if it's going exactly as planned, then the plan is to end up with a no deal and throw us into the wild west of WTO terms with almost every country on earth join a microbial-inspired economic abyss in 10 months' time. The Independent newspaper did report that a senior Tory was talking about the possibility of extending talks. Now, again, it depends what they meant by that. There was no name as far as I could tell. I would take senior Tory to mean government minister. If, however, they're just referring to Philip Hammond's statement, who, I mean, he's a well-known Tory. He was a senior Tory. Would you call him that now? I don't know. But that might suggest that within the Parliamentary Party, perhaps there are little whispers and potentially people trying to persuade Boris Johnson of this. And it has to be said that Boris Johnson's spokesperson did say that there were no plans to extend. Now, that is opposed to the much more definite, there will definitely not be an extension. The ambiguity in the statement of no plans usually is political language for we're not ruling it out, we're just not saying we're going there yet. The government doesn't have to act quickly on this, it has to be said. They can always see how the situation plays out and then seek an extension later on. The timetable, the legislative timetable that means that Boris Johnson won't be able to seek an extension after halfway through this year is entirely his. The EU have no such stipulation. So if he got Parliament to change that piece of legislation, there'd be no problem doing it even later. But at the moment, we have to judge that if he's going to seek an extension, he needs to do it in the next few months. But that still gives him a few months. It's possible that the government doesn't want to do that now, where they may lose the support of the Brexit supporting part of the public at a time when the urgent need to extend is not yet apparent to the general population. Better to wait until it's pretty clear to everyone in the country that we have a much more urgent situation to deal with. Also, it could be said, a little thought that I had was potentially if Boris Johnson, who we know is going for this hard Brexit and has insisted there won't be an extension, suddenly seeks an extension right now, the panic that's sort of sweeping through the country in certain quarters may be enhanced. And of course, I wouldn't want the government to do anything that would increase the level of panic already. So if that's the plan, if the plan is, well, you know, we've still got a few months, let's wait and see how it develops. If it develops and we've got major disruptions to the country, then the justification is there. It makes sense to everyone, including the Brexit supporting part of the public. I'm going to say fair enough on that one. We do have, as I said, a few more months before Johnson's legislation restricting our ability to seek an extension kicks in. So that's the situation as we have it now. The only danger I can possibly foresee is because you've got so many other people who are, let's face facts, Boris Johnson's political opponents, because at the end of the day, everyone is Boris Johnson's political opponent, calling for this extension. If he then does it later on, there is a danger that political points will attempt to be scored off this, which will make him less likely to want to do so. So let's hope we don't fall into that little trap. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.